Beck Weathers left Camp 4 on Everest with one goal: summit the world's highest peak before sunrise. He never saw the storm coming. By morning, 8 people would die on the mountain, and Beck, half blind and abandoned for dead at 27,600 feet, should have been one of them. But hours later, he staggered back into camp, still alive. These few minutes in the death zone changed disaster medicine forever and shattered what climbers thought they knew about survival. What actually happened in the night he came back? And why did everyone believe his story should have ended on the mountain? The night before summit day on Everest begins with ritual. In the cramped tents at Camp 4, climbers check and recheck their gear. The stove spits and hisses, fighting the thin air to melt snow for water. Gloves are lined up in pairs, boots warmed inside sleeping bags, headlamps tested with numb fingers. Every movement is deliberate. There's no spare energy at 26,000 feet. Outside, the wind snaps at the tent fabric and rattles the guy lines. Each gust carries fine ice that needles through the seams and settles on sleeping bags in a glittering dust. Sleep comes in fragments, broken by shivers and the sound of someone coughing in the dark. Beck Weathers sits upright in his bag, running through the plan in his mind. He's come from Dallas, Texas, chasing the dream of the 7 summits. Everest is the crown. Years of training, months away from home, tens of thousands of dollars, each sacrifice pressed into this night. He's pictured the summit photo for years, arms raised, sky behind him, proof that he belongs at the top of the world. But there's a problem he can't ignore. Years earlier, he had radial keratotomy to fix his vision. At sea level, it worked. Up here, the air is too thin. The higher he climbs, the more the world blurs at the edges. He knows it's a risk, but he tells himself he'll manage. One more mountain, one more chance. At 11:30 p.m., the call goes out. Headlamps flicker on. Boots are laced and oxygen masks strapped tight. The line of climbers files out into the darkness, crampons biting into hard snow. Every exhale freezes instantly on balaclavas. Above, the stars burn cold and sharp, then vanish as a cloud slides over the ridge. The wind drops, then picks up again, a low, steady roar. The only way forward is by following the pool of light from the person ahead. Each step is a test. Does the foot hold? Is the rope secure? The South Col falls away behind them, swallowed by night. The group moves in silence, broken only by the squeak of snow and the click of carabiners. Some climbers count steps to stay awake. Others mutter to themselves, fighting off the urge to stop. The cold is absolute. Fingers and toes go numb, then start to burn. Frostbite is always waiting for a mistake. Beck's world narrows to the circle of his headlamp and the sound of his own breathing. He blinks, trying to clear his vision, but the rope ahead is just a gray smear. Shadows shift at the edge of his sight. He knows the risk is growing with every meter, but turning back now feels impossible. The summit is still out there, somewhere above the clouds. The only way is up. By the time the group reaches the ridge, the horizon is starting to lighten. The balcony, a narrow ledge at 27,600 feet, is just ahead. Oxygen is low, time is tight, and the world is about to change. For Beck, the next decision will be the most important of his life. At 27,600 feet, the balcony isn't a place to linger. The ledge barely fits a handful of climbers. Oxygen is thin, and every breath feels like pulling air through a straw. Beck stops, blinks, and tries to bring the world into focus. He can see light, but the rope ahead is a smear, the ridge a suggestion. His eyes are failing him faster than he hoped. Years before, a surgeon had cut tiny lines into his corneas. Radial keratotomy, the fix for nearsightedness. It worked at home. At altitude, the rules change. The air is thinner, pressure drops, and the cornea starts to swell. For most, the eye holds its shape. For Beck, each incision is a weak spot. Fluid creeps in, the center flattens, and his vision shifts from sharp to foggy. It isn't just blur, it's as if the world has been erased at the edges, leaving only a tunnel of uncertain gray. He's not the first to feel this. Ophthalmologists warn that RK patients risk unpredictable vision at high altitude. The cornea, already weakened, reacts to the lack of oxygen by swelling in the wrong places. Above 20,000 feet, the change can come on within a day. At the balcony, after hours in the death zone, Beck's eyes are losing the fight. The higher he climbs, the less he sees. A guide approaches, studies Beck's face, and makes the call. No more up, no more down. Wait here. The order is simple, but the reason is clinical. Beck can't see well enough to navigate the ridge ahead, and the terrain is too exposed for guesswork. The balcony becomes a holding cell. He's told to stay put until daylight, or until someone can lead him down. The group moves on, boots scraping rock, headlamps bobbing into the mist. Beck is alone in the thin air, locked in place by a body that won't cooperate and eyes that betray him. Minutes pass, then hours. The cold creeps in through his layers. He tries to make sense of the shifting light. The rope is there, but he can't trust it. The summit, so close, is now out of reach, not because his legs gave out, but because the shape of his cornea changed with the mountain. Every decision from here will be dictated by what he cannot see. The sky above is turning, the wind is rising, and Beck waits, caught between ambition and biology, on a ledge that doesn't forgive mistakes. The line of climbers stretches thin across the southeast ridge, each person tethered to the next by a single rope. By late morning, the mountain is gridlocked. The Hillary Step, a nearly vertical rock face at 28,839 feet, becomes the choke point. There are no fixed lines in place when the first climbers arrive. Sherpas from different teams each think the others will handle it. Packs are dropped, ropes untangled, anchors hammered into cold stone, while the queue grows longer. Minutes bleed into nearly an hour. Climbers stamp their feet, shake their hands, try to keep the cold from settling in too deep. Every delay above 8,000 meters is a debt you pay later. The crowd at the step grows. Some climbers have already used half their bottled oxygen. Others watch the summit window shrink. Radios hiss, but batteries die fast in the cold, and messages garble. Rob Hall's and Scott Fisher's teams, along with independent climbers, all funnel into the same narrow passage. The ridge should take minutes to cross. Today, it takes hours. The 2 p.m. turnaround time comes and goes. Still, climbers push upward, drawn by the promise of the summit and the fear of turning back empty-handed. Clouds thicken above the ridge. The wind, steady all morning, begins to gust. First at 40 miles per hour, then harder. Spindrift sweeps over the rocks, stinging exposed skin. Temperature drops fast, plummeting toward -40. Visibility collapses. What was sky is now a wall of white. The world shrinks to the space between your boots and the rope. Guides shout to regroup, but their voices vanish in the wind. Some climbers lose the route entirely, wandering off course in the whiteout. Others huddle together, waiting for a break in the storm that never comes. The bottleneck has done its work. Climbers are scattered, exhausted, and exposed. The South Col, their only shelter, is somewhere below, hidden by wind and snow. Time, once measured in steps and breaths, now disappears in the storm. On the South Col, the storm has stripped away all illusions of safety. By evening, teams searching for missing climbers find 2 figures, Beck Weathers and Yasuko Namba, barely moving, faces rimed with frost, breaths shallow. The rescuers themselves are spent, lungs burning from thin air, minds dulled by hypoxia. Every action is slower, every decision heavier. At 8,000 meters, the rules of rescue change. There isn't enough oxygen to think clearly or strength to carry another person far. Survival depends on who can move and who cannot. Stuart Hutchison, a climber with medical training, kneels beside Beck and Yasuko. He checks for responses, tries to rouse them, but their eyes barely flicker. Capillary refill is slow, skin waxy and cold. The wind is rising again, stinging exposed skin, numbing fingers through gloves. Hutchison weighs the odds. Moving either of them would take hours, maybe more, and the effort could cost more lives. There are no stretchers, no heated blankets, no backup. Only the mountain and the clock. In the death zone, triage is stripped to its core. The priority is clear. Save the ones who can walk, who might survive the descent. Those who can't, those already fading, are marked for later, if later ever comes. It's not cruelty, but a calculation forced by physics and altitude. Hutchison consults with Lopsang Jangbu, a Sherpa who has already carried others down. They agree. Beck and Yasuko are too far gone. The risk to rescuers is too great. The call is made in low voices. They leave extra oxygen nearby, wrap what they can, and whisper apologies that vanish in the wind. The circle of rescuers closes in, then breaks apart, each person carrying the weight of the decision. 8 climbers will die on Everest in these 2 days. For Beck, the story seems finished, but the mountain is not done with him yet. Around 4 p.m. on May 11th, Beck Weathers opens his eyes. For hours, his body has been curled in the snow, skin like wax, breath shallow. He remembers nothing of the night, only a slow drift between warmth and the edge of nothing. When awareness returns, it's not a grand moment. He's cold, but there's a distant comfort, almost like lying in bed. Then pain hits. His right arm, when he tries to move it, thumps against the ice, frozen solid. His face feels stiff, lips thick and numb. Frostbite has already claimed its ground. The mountain is quiet now, the wind down to a whisper. Beck knows what this means. If he doesn't move, he will never leave this place. He forces himself upright. The world tilts. He can't see well. His vision is a blur of white and shadow, but he recognizes the direction of camp. Each step is a guess. His boots crunch through crusted snow, feet numb and brittle. He falls, rises, staggers forward again. When he reaches Camp 4, the climbers inside stare in disbelief. The man they left for dead is standing at the tent door, face blackened, jacket caked with rime, one arm pressed to his chest. For a moment, no one moves. Then, hands grab his pack, voices call his name, and someone pulls him inside. Inside the tent, the air is no warmer, but the wind is gone. There's no doctor here, only exhausted climbers with basic supplies. They lay Beck down, check for a pulse, and start the only treatment they can offer. Oxygen, sips of warm liquid, layers of sleeping bags. No IVs, no advanced drugs, nothing more than patience and hope. They watch for signs. Does his skin pink up when pressed? Do his eyes track movement? Does he shiver or speak? At this altitude, survival is measured in small victories. A swallow, a word, a heartbeat that keeps going. Too much heat, too fast, and pain floods back in waves. Too slow, and the body slips away. The stove flame flickers, threatening to die with every gust that rattles the tent wall. The hours pass in slow increments. Beck drifts in and out, sometimes lucid, sometimes mumbling. The others keep watch, rationing oxygen and water, waiting for any change. Every minute he stays alive, the odds shift. Outside, the light fades and the wind picks up again. It's not over, but for the first time since the storm, Beck is no longer alone in the open. He is alive, and now he is someone who might be moved. The descent from Camp 4 begins as a test of will and teamwork. Beck Weathers can barely move his hands. His face is swollen and black with frostbite. The rescuers, climbers from several teams, Sherpas, and those strong enough to help, form a loose chain. Each person braces Beck through the worst steps, guiding him down the Lhotse face. The slope drops away at 45 degrees, blue ice shining under a thin crust of snow. Every anchor, every carabiner, every foot placement counts. A slip here means a fall of hundreds of meters. Ropes hum in the wind. The air is so thin that a few steps leave everyone gasping, hearts pounding in their chests. Below, the western combe stretches white and silent. But it's a trick. The distance is huge. The icefall beyond is a maze of ladders and creaking seracs. For a healthy climber, it's hours of careful work. For Beck, every meter is earned with pain. The rescuers rotate, taking turns supporting him, holding his harness, keeping him upright. There are no speeches, no drama, just breath, step, plant, repeat. Oxygen runs low. The sun glints off the snow, dazzling and pitiless. At Camp 2, the team faces a new problem. Beck is alive, but carrying him through the Khumbu icefall could take days. The risk is enormous. The only real chance is to fly him out. High above, the air barely wants to hold a helicopter. Thin air means weak lift. Every kilogram matters. Lieutenant Colonel Madan Khatri Chetri, a Nepal Army pilot, studies the weather and the numbers. His Eurocopter AS-350B2 has a certified ceiling far below this altitude, but he strips out the seats, brings only the fuel he needs, and waits for the wind to calm. The sound of rotors grows from a distant hum to a roar. The helicopter noses into the combe, skimming the snow. Rotor wash kicks up crystals that spin in the sun. Chetri lands with the lightest touch, just long enough for Beck to be loaded. Straps click. A hand squeezes his shoulder. The machine lifts off, dropping forward into the thin air, then down toward thicker atmosphere and hope. No one speaks until the helicopter disappears into the valley. For the first time in Everest history, a rescue has beaten the odds at this altitude. The chain of hands, the pilot's gamble, and a window of calm have brought Beck out of the death zone. On May 10th to 11th, 1996, 8 climbers died on Everest, but Beck Weathers walked back into camp after being left for dead twice. Medical records confirm his vision loss was caused by the effects of radial keratotomy at altitude, a risk known but rarely documented before. Expedition logs and survivor accounts show that triage decisions on the South Col were made under extreme conditions, with no guarantee of rescue. We still do not have a complete, minute-by-minute record of Beck's night on the ice, and some details of the rescue chain remain undocumented. Today, his survival is studied in medical journals and mountaineering courses as an example of both physiological resilience and the limits of human judgment in crisis. The 1996 disaster led to changes in Everest protocols, but it also left enduring questions about decision-making in the death zone. In the end, Beck Weathers' story stands as documented proof that survival on Everest is measured by minutes, choices, and the willingness of others to act.